President Trump reversing an Obama-era housing rule that forced low-income housing into the suburbs. Listen to what the president had to say about it. Roll the tape, please.
I just ended the rule on suburbs. You know, the suburbs, people fight all of their lives to get into the suburbs and have a beautiful home. There will be no more low-income housing forced into the suburbs. I abandoned and took away and just rescinded the rule. It's been going on for years. I've seen conflict for years. It's been hell.
Perfect timing on our guest, Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson. Mr. Secretary, what the president's suggesting here would seem to hurt minorities, wouldn't it?
Well, interestingly enough, first of all, the government no longer believes in building these large multifamily complexes with little forethought or little afterthought or any kind of thought, leaving them to deteriorate and become the nidus for crime and prostitution and everything else. We don't do that. Now we're talking about multifamily, mixed income, mixed use properties, much smaller, that blend in. So that's just not happening anymore. Number two, when you're talking about minorities in the suburbs, a Brookings Institute study shows that demographically, 35% of the suburban inhabitants are members of minority groups. And if you look at San Francisco, Las Vegas, Houston, and Washington, D.C., more than 50% of the suburban inhabitants are minorities. So the people who are saying that, you know, this is a way to keep minorities out of suburbs have no idea what they're talking about. They really need to look at the facts and just understand that what we're talking about is making sure that you give the various municipalities some jurisdiction over how they do things. You know, we have our FHEO, Fair Housing Equal Opportunity, working with the FHAP, working with the various groups and communities to make sure that there are no discriminatory practices going on. And we are pursuing that at least the same rate as the previous administration, have cut down the number of days by 26%, the percentage of time by 26% that it takes to resolve these cases. So you just have to really look at the facts. Sometimes they get in the way of ideological arguments, but the facts are definitely in our favor.
They certainly do. Now, we've got a lot to go at with you today. Here's topic number 2. $21.5 billion worth of rent is past due. It is owed. How does this play out? Who's going to actually pay for this?
Well, the president is very concerned about people being evicted on the streets. He says we obviously don't want that to happen. We're working hard on that. But we have to distinguish. There are two groups of people. There are those who've been impacted by the COVID-19 crisis who would otherwise be okay. We most definitely have to deal effectively with those cases. But there's another group of people who were in the process of being evicted because they didn't meet the criteria for being taken care of in a rental situation. And you know, they are a different group of people, and that group of people has been accumulating because of the eviction moratorium. Obviously, we want to be fair and just to everybody, and we want to do things that not only take care of the renters, but also take care of the landlords, of the various servicers, because if we allow one part of the system to break down, the whole thing will break down eventually. So you have to take a holistic point of view and not just a point of view that, you know, will try to get you votes.
Can I raise what the president was talking and tweeting about this morning?
Yes.
He put out a tweet about an hour and a half ago, and it really roiled the markets, about delaying the presidential election, delaying the elections in November of this year. That really roiled things on Wall Street. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, only Congress can do that. Yep. So, you know, people sometimes they get all excited and hysterical.
But Mr. Secretary, he's got a point. I mean, if you have mail-in balloting the way it is now planned, there is no way you get an election result on election night. It's going to take weeks and weeks, and it will be cantankerous, toxic. There'll be challenges from everybody. It will be a really upset election.
Yeah, well, the argument that we should do this by mail-in ballot obviously is a silly argument. There's plenty of historical evidence that that does not work. And this is much too important an election to leave to something that we know can be tampered with and is ineffective. So let's utilize that energy to come up with a mechanism that actually works.
Yes, sir. Ben Carson, Health and Human Services Secretary, thank you very much for joining us, sir. We
Always a
appreciate it.
pleasure, Stuart.